Hello, and thanks again for joining me to talk about our favourite game that does not yet exist. We're just a few days away from finally seeing gameplay, so until then, I'm going to take you through 5 things that you may or may not have missed, and engage in a bit of speculation because after all, when they're so good at keeping everything under wraps, all we can do is speculate. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is Port Royal. That is the digitally reconstructed map of the home of the British Crown in the year 1780. So it's not quite the wretched hive of scum and villainy that it might have been, let's say, a century before. This is sort of post-earthquake in I think the 1600s. This is when it was the home in the Caribbean, the central location of the British. And the capstan team have actually constructed the entire port as it was back then. It's really impressive. We're not sure when we're going to see this sort of implemented into the game, whether it's going to be part of the kind of pre-public release. It's part of one of the Kickstarter rewards, which actually we didn't quite reach, one of the stretch goals, but they have sort of said anything that was on that stretch goal list, they sort of planning on rolling out anyway. Obviously we got the new updated roadmap recently. It wasn't explicitly part of that, but we are expecting at some point in the future it hopefully being rolled out to use, you know, in a sort of role-playing environment, let's say in the lobby, you know, before and after games. I did actually later learn that one of the drivers behind making this so detailed and recreating the whole port of Port Royal was actually a partnership with a museum. This was a funding opportunity for the team, which sadly I don't think quite materialized in the way that they hoped, but it gave them an actual opportunity and a reason to create the sort of heart of this game in its infancy. You know, it was a big part of the Kickstarter trailer. I think they released the videos of Port Royal to the public over 2 years ago now, so I don't know what's gone on behind the scenes then for this location. I like to think that they've been very slowly but surely populating it with NPCs. I think in one of the videos we do see a sort of semi-gameplay interaction with maybe he's like a merchant or a baker or something. I think there's something going on there. We'll find out eventually when we get our hands on this what it's going to look like. But did you know that the team actually created the old Port Royal? I think evidence of the sunken city that was sunk in the earthquake in 1692. Tyler actually mentioned this in response to a Q&A, I think, just after the Kickstarter finished. Somebody asked them about the earthquake, and Tyler said that it is, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said it is actually possible to run aground in a certain part of the water on the sort of harbour side of Port Royal. You can actually see it included in the Kickstarter video. If you look at certain maps and references, looking at the videos, you can actually see it's going to be in this sort of area here. It's shown on the map here as well, Old Port Royal. So they've actually gone through the detail of including that. So something to look out for, possibly a place to avoid when we get to dock here in the near future, hopefully. The next thing I want to do is engage in some speculation. I don't want the international audience of this game to be complaining that it's too Britain-centric, with Port Royal existing and nothing else. I want to speculate in the next locations of where the next main hubs will be. I think those are almost definitely going to be Havana and Port-au-Prince. Havana is a fairly obvious one. You know, we see images of it in the Kickstarter. Tyler, the lead dev, actually answered a question as well when somebody asked where is the next port you would like to create, and he pretty much said, I would love to do Havana next. It's obviously a very different flavour to the British home. It would be really cool to see these different environments implemented, and it obviously makes sense to have the home of the Spanish at the time. As for the home of the French, I was speculating myself whether it was going to be Cap Français or Port-au-Prince, just because Cap Français, although it wasn't officially their capital there at the time, I think it was still a pretty big economic hub, and I think still the home of their shipbuilding economy. And actually it was only when looking to make content for this video that I pretty much confirmed what I'm speculating here, when I listened to something that I'd heard a million times, because I'm sad and I like to have the Kickstarter video on sometimes in the background while I'm working. But listen to this.
You might recruit a crew from a tavern in Havana and set sail at dusk, chasing whispers of a French convoy headed for Port-au-Prince.
You can actually kind of see confirmation of the sort of territorial division in this very brief image from the Kickstarter video as well. I don't want to leave out the Dutch faction or the American faction here, but as you can see, this would make a really cool sort of, let's call it the heartlands of the Caribbean at the time, between the 3 main big players in the region. So there it is, you heard it here first. We're getting Havana next, and we're getting Port-au-Prince straight after that. Coming soon to your game. The next thing we're going to do is engage in some professional cartography. We're going to try and explore the map and what we have so far, what we think we have so far. I guess we're going to try and flesh out the Caribbean to give us hope at what may or may not already exist out there in terms of the maps that they've hinted at or actually explicitly told us are going to exist. So between the Kickstarter video, the stretch goals, and various different teasers, we're going to see what we actually have out there. So first we've got Port Royal, then in the Kickstarter video we've got hints at little map sections. This first one from the Ile de Saints, and this is located just here off the coast of modern day Guadeloupe, just north of Dominica. This, if you didn't know, I'm 99% sure this is our starting location. This is actually quite important. This is the first place we're ever going to set sail in this game. In the sea trials, this is going to be where the tutorial and the first exploration takes place. You'll notice it wasn't actually included in the stretch goals, and also in the last journal when they showed us a sort of screenshot of the regatta sailing mode. I tried to figure out where that map actually came from. If you just sort of turn the map upside down, you'll see that it fits here in Ile de Saints as well. You've got the small islands of La Coche and Les Augustins. And if that wasn't enough confirmation, I'm pretty sure John on his chat with the University of Edinburgh actually confirmed it also. The next location we can grab is La Tortugas, which could be a couple of locations in the Caribbean. I think there's a couple of small island chains called that. I think it's actually Spanish for turtles. Anyway, this particular one is just west of the Florida Keys. So we've actually got quite a sort of northern location. When it comes to mapping out the whole Caribbean, this one's, you know, up top. I imagine this one's going to be the most sort of paradise compared to the rest of the maps. And we've also got this one here, which is the Virgin Islands. We've got this reference here, Ile de la Providence, which I'm excited to say is actually Nassau. Now, if we come away from what I've managed to snipe from the Kickstarter video and we look at the actual list of stretch rewards, we've obviously already covered the Las Tortugas and the Virgin Islands, but also we have here listed the Grenadines, which is down here in, yes, you guessed it, the Grenadines, and also Chaos Cochinos, which is all the way over here on the other side of the Caribbean Sea. So when we zoom out and just plaster on everything that I've just discussed, all these little locations that we're likely to have in future, or even added in the bit of speculation that I've thrown in, this is what we might kind of have in some capacity. This is the dream of the fully explorable Caribbean. We're starting to get the ingredients that soon we're going to be able to plug in here. I've got so much faith they're going to make this huge map. It's going to be amazing. Have you learned anything new so far? Have I dug up any nuggets, or am I just pointing out the obvious? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think so far. I'm going to talk about a couple more things. Let's go. For point 4, I just want to quickly go back over the playable nations in the game. We've got Britain, France, Spain, the United States, and the Dutch Republic. And we also have the independent peoples. This has only really been alive in the Discord so far, where you can sort of choose your factions. I think the independent peoples, when the game exists, is going to be for people who want to roleplay as pirates, or also smaller nations at the time, perhaps some of the Scandinavian nations or other such flags that might be available in the game. You might not have noticed, I don't know if this was a deliberate exclusion, but in the Kickstarter trailer when we talk about Arena, there's actually a little graphic where it shows 5 flags, and the independent peoples, for all intents and purposes, they use the skull and crossbone. That is not included in the Arena graphic here, so I don't know if perhaps when we get Arena it will just be those 5 and not the other specific people. Maybe that's because, you know, there's only going to be one captain perhaps, and what flag will they be flying? We're not sure. Can I just say, hilarious meme content that the French flag at the time was just plain white. This is like centuries before the whole surrender thing, but still hilarious. The last thing I want to talk about is just to remind you of the realism that this game is hoping to represent. It's not going to be a Hollywood version of this swashbuckling era of piracy. It's going to be real ships, real dynamic rigging systems, realistic movements and interactions. You know, even if that means you might see a helm kind of under the deck or hidden, like this one in the Artemida here. You might even see 2 helmsmen operating at the same time, and you might not be doing that yourself. We're going to have complicated rigging systems. You know, there's even a mock-up design here of a rigging tutorial that we might see. We might even see as soon as sea trials, actually, in a few months' time. And as they said at the beginning, it's going to be easy to learn and hard to master. We're also going to have things like very realistic ranking systems. I think multiple different currencies, if this old image is anything to go by. I think John recently confirmed the whole open book live interface and menu system is going to be active as well. The size and the scale of ships is going to be very realistic. We're going to have cramped lower decks. We're going to have realistic sail movement. I imagine very realistic reload times like you see in other titles. Also, not to forget the very unsanitized way that they're hoping to cover the sugar trade and the enslaved populations of the Caribbean. I understand, if I'm not mistaken, that we might actually see some NPC characters representing those peoples as soon as Sea Trials comes out. I think one of those characters is going to be part of that tutorial. And that's it, just a quick one from me. I hope you learned even just one thing from this video, and I hope it just serves as a little appetizer before we get hands-on gameplay in as little as 1 week's time. And I'm sure I'll be back with you as soon as we do. So until next time, love the game, love your neighbour, and love yourself. Bye bye.